Hello, welcome to Escrow Escapes. This is the real estate stories, market trends, and true tales from the front lines of closings. I am Matthew Halliday, Navy veteran and father of three girls, also a full time real estate agent. Let's get into it.
Closing day. 2 days out. Movers at the curb, the contractor has a start date, and then a buried utility line and a recorded driveway access show up on title, right where the buyer planned the pool. I'm Matthew Halliday. Welcome to Escrow Escapes. Today, that last minute surprise is our whole episode. How it happens, and how you fix it without losing the house. Let's break it down. Quick preview. You'll learn the early red flags, what to do when an easement shows up mid-escrow, and the closing protections that actually let a deal finish. I'll give you scripts you can use word for word and one checklist line to add to your next offer. Back to the story. The buyer had design plans, bids from a contractor, and a budget. Finding the buried utility and the recorded access 2 days before closing felt like a punch. Suddenly, the pool footprint was disputed, and the garage expansion encroached on someone else's legal right to cross the yard. That stress isn't abstract. It's canceled checks, phone calls at midnight, and a family having to shift plans. What that kind of surprise can do: delay your close, force a redesign, or even spook the lender. Sometimes it costs thousands to relocate infrastructure. Sometimes it's a simple recorded modification, but you need to know what you're facing. Here's the first move I always make. Don't assume disclosures will show up on the listing photos. Scan the fine print. Words like utility access or ingress/egress easement are red flags. Follow the county plat and the preliminary title report before you sign. If an exception is listed, you need to know now, not after the contractor has ordered materials. And ask the seller, plainly, any recorded easements, rights of way, or shared access agreements affecting planned improvements. Say it out loud. Also, add the LTA or boundary survey to your contingency window. Those documents are your early warning system. If lines or notations look odd on the plat, flag them for the title officer and surveyor immediately. At the point you find an easement, start by identifying what kind it is. A recorded easement is a file on title granting rights to a utility or third party. Those typically bind future owners. Prescriptive easements come from long-term use, and implied easements arise from how property was subdivided. The fix for each type is different. A practical expectation. Utility relocations can take a few weeks to several months and often run from a few $1,000s into the low five-figure range depending on scope and jurisdiction. So treat cost and time as estimates and confirm with the utility and your title officer. If you uncover a recorded easement mid-escrow, you've still got leverage, but you need a plan. Can the easement be narrowed or relocated? Will the holder accept a protective sleeve for underground lines? Or do you need a price reduction, indemnity from the seller, or a title endorsement? Lay out options clearly and fast. Start by sizing up the harm. How much usable square footage is lost? And what will redesign cost? That arithmetic guides whether you ask for relocation, cash, or protection on title. We request relocation of the easement or a price reduction to cover redesign and construction costs. If relocation is unavailable, seller to provide indemnity and a title endorsement protecting the buyer. Use that when you need a clear contract level ask. When the easement involves a neighbor, try, will you negotiate a recorded modification or a limited, non-exclusive access agreement that preserves our planned improvements? It sounds direct because it needs to be. Don't forget the people who actually solve this stuff. Your title officer and escrow. Title can often issue an indemnity or a survey-related endorsement. Escrow can hold back funds until a recorded modification is filed. Those tools let you close without giving away leverage. Lenders vary here. Some will insist the exception be cleared before funding. Others will accept a title endorsement plus an escrow holdback. Always confirm lender requirements right away, or the loan timeline will bite you. What closing safeguards actually work? First, contract language that makes survey approval explicit. Buyer to approve any easements or encroachments that materially impair planned improvements. Second, request title endorsements tailored to the exception. Third, escrow holdbacks tied to recorded fixes. And fourth, spell out remedies if modification fails, price adjustment, seller cure, or buyer termination. Clarity avoids argument later. Back to our buyer. The Alta survey flagged the buried line. Title uncovered the recorded driveway access, and negotiations produced a compromise. The utility agreed to a narrow sleeve solution for the pool setback. The neighbor agreed to a narrowed access corridor in exchange for a small cash payment and a recorded modification. Escrow held part of the funds until documents were recorded. The plan changed, but the buyer kept the house. That small cash payment was in the low thousands. An estimate, of course. But it was far cheaper than ripping up a finished pool or ending up in court. Small, targeted fixes often beat long litigation. So what should you actually remember? Look for red flags in the listing and get the preliminary title report and Alta survey early. If an easement appears mid-escrow, quantify the impact and push for relocation, reduction, or indemnity. Use direct language. Enclosed with safeguards, survey approval language, targeted title endorsements, and escrow holdbacks when needed. Those 3 moves keep the deal under control. 1 immediately actionable checklist item for your next offer. Include a contingency like this. Buyer to obtain and approve an ALTI S/boundary survey and to review title exceptions within X business days. Any recorded easements or rights of way that materially impair planned improvements must be cured, modified, or indemnified by seller prior to closing, or buyer reserves the right to request a price adjustment or terminate. Run the final wording by your title officer or attorney. If this episode helped you, subscribe to Escrow Escapes so you don't miss future episodes with negotiation scripts, checklist items, and real-world closing playbooks. Head to the show notes for a downloadable checklist and the exact language we covered today. That's a wrap on this episode of Escrow Escapes. Thanks for listening, and remember, every deal has its bumps. It's how you navigate them that counts. Catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Escrow Escapes. For more real estate tips, market updates, and behind-the-scenes stories, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I am Matthew Halliday. We'll see you on the next closing. Thanks. Have a great day.